Hey, I am Joshua Phillips with Churchill Mortgage, and I am here with Bobby Hite. Why don't you introduce yourself, Bobby?
I'm Bobby Hite. I'm in the real estate business in the Nashville market, in the Brentwood market, and started my career in the late 70s in the south end of the county, from Creve Hall to Brentwood to Nolensville to the Cane Ridge area. That's kind of the market area that I specialize in, although I have clients
Everywhere.
and from Gallatin to Franklin to Bellevue, all in between.
You've been all over the place for
Lots of activity.
40 plus years.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about how you said late 70s.
Yeah,
So
I was in.
how'd you get started?
In the 1970s, I was in my early 20s and went to college for 1 year, never went back, and grew up in Englewood on the Cumberland River on the east side of town. And back in the mid to late 70s, Hendersonville was kind of a hot market. People were moving up to that area. Old Hickory Lake was a hot market. A lot of people in the East Nashville market was moving north. And I remember going up, I was about 21, 22 years old. Tom Moore Realtors, which the veterans around the city would remember him, but he was the leader in that Hendersonville market for the 1960s, 70s, and 80s. He went to Goldsville High School, played football at Vanderbilt, played at Green Bay Packers. I remember calling him, going up to meet with him, and I went into his office, and I was probably 21, 22 years old, and I told him who I was, where I live, and I wanted to get in the real estate market. And his comment was, "Well, Bobby, you look like you're about 12. Come back in 5 years."
Oh, wow.
So I, not discouraged, but came back, and it turned out that my next door neighbor was friends with a gentleman by the name of Tom Ramsey, who is Dave Ramsey's father.
Oh, wow.
And he had an office on Allied Drive right off Nolensville Road. I never been to Flat Rock or Woodbine before because I was on the east side of town. So I met Tom and Millie Ramsey in the mid to late 70s, and they were kind of mentors to me for 2 or 3 years. And I hung my license there, got licensed, and I actually opened my company, I think, in late 1979.
Wow. So you have been around a long time. And I'd love to hear just what you think about Nashville and how 40 years. I've lived here over 30 years. Like, how much has changed?
I sold you your first house.
Exactly. Well, I was going to tell that story at some point. So yeah,
You should have kept it.
yeah, exactly. So I'll tell that. I
don't know. The market is, I remember 1980s, 1990s, Creve Hall was kind of a starter home market. You had the 1,200 square foot walk through 3rd bedroom, knotty pine paneling. People would buy that property, stay in it 6 or 7, 8 years, and they'd move into Williamson County, and they'd make 30 or 40 or 50,000 7, 8, 9 years later. And then the 1990s came, 2000 came, and all of a sudden Creve Hall became a market where people were buying, remodeling, adding on, painting brick, and it just, the starter home market has disappeared in the Nashville area.
Yeah. You probably never imagined that a home in Creve Hall would be worth $1 million.
Yeah, $380 a square foot.
It's incredible. I'll tell that story about how I bought my first house. So 1997, we've got 2 little kids and a third one on the way, and we're living in an apartment. And one day it hits me. I'm reading the newspaper. And back then you actually had the ads in the newspaper for houses for sale. And somehow I was looking at that, and I thought, I wonder if I could buy a house. So what do? Like most people, I call my dad, and I said, "Daddy, do you think I could buy a house?" He said, "I don't know, son. Why don't you call Bobby Hite?" So I called you up, and sure enough, you took us out. As I recall, you showed us about 5 or 6 houses, and I think you'd planned it well because the first 5 were not, they were fixer-uppers for sure. The last house was small, but it was just really nice. It was a 1,200 square foot home. We bought it in Antioch for $85,000.
Yep.
What a starter home.
Sure.
Now, the interest rate was 8.5%, but we didn't care. We were just happy to be in a house, and it was a perfect house for us. Like you said, for 5 years, we sold it. We made about $30,000. That was normal back then. So what do you think about the real estate market today?
Well, I'm thinking about your story because there were a group of realtors that would meet at Harding Place and Knowles Road. There was a Shoney's there.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember kind of stumbling into that group of guys. They were 50, 60 years old. I was in my late 20s. This is like late 70s, early 80s. And I kind of joined their breakfast club, and they were all kind of mentors to me.
Yeah.
But Mr. Oaks was a very seasoned veteran in the industry. He put the Opryland deal together. He was very successful in the Brentwood, the south end of the county market. I remember him telling me one time, he said, Bobby, the best real estate market is a relaxed market.
A relaxed market.
Yeah. And when I'm giving you the definition, you're going to say that has got so much wisdom 40 plus years later.
Mm-hmm.
I said, what does that mean? He said, when it takes 30 to 45 days to sell a house.
Gotcha.
That's the best real estate market.
30, 45 days to get a contract?
Yes.
Basically. Yeah. Back in the days when, it would take a few weeks.
Yeah. And the other thing he told me, he said, you can make a lot of money selling houses for people, but you can get wealthy by buying houses and keeping them. And he said, don't be afraid to pay fair market value for something, for an investment. 5 years from now, you'll look like you're the smartest investor ever. So I took his advice on both categories, and I've been very blessed with lots of properties over the years that I bought and sold and redid, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I just remember that season of the 80s and the 90s where, the 30-year-old couple starting out could buy a house.
Yeah.
And today,
it's very difficult.
the average, I'm putting a house on the market in the Aberdeen Woods area, and it's a $800,000 house. And I hate to say this, it's almost like a starter house. I mean, it's a very beautiful home,
mm-hmm.
but I had an open house there Sunday, and a young couple walked in, and they're looking for their first house. And who would have thought that a young couple would be looking in the 800,000 plus range for a starter home?
Yeah, we've talked about this before, but it is very unfortunate today. I mean, you probably would have to make a six-figure income. Yeah, you definitely would have to make a six-figure income to buy that type of house and to be a first-time home buyer. Yeah. So it's been unfortunate that it's really pushed out the my kids can't even believe that I bought my first house for $85,000. And of course, you go back a couple generations, people were paying $30,000, $40,000. So that is the nature of things. So I'll say the one thing about you is that you absolutely love real estate. I mean, I don't know that every real estate agent out there loves it, but you love real estate. You love homes. You love buying homes. You love the story about homes. Mm-hmm. You know a lot about the homes. I remember our daughter and son-in-law bought a house in Antioch, and I'm telling you what street it's on. Mm-hmm. And you're like, yeah, I know that street, and I know a couple people that have bought on that street. Like you're just an encyclopedia of information about homes. So what is it about homes that you love so much?
Well, I guess I'm just sold on the long-term investment. And even in this market that we're in right now, I mean, I've seen properties that I sold 2 years ago that have already gone up $75,000, $100,000 in a 24-month period.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to imagine the continuation of the appreciation, but I think it's still the best place to put your money. And I have a lot of people that call and they want to go to their second house. And I say, can you afford to keep your first house for
as a rental property? Yeah.
And some can, some can't. And so it's just from an investment standpoint, it's you can take that asset, go to the bank, leverage it. You can't do that with mutual funds or retirement accounts or things like that. Sure. I don't think you can. I'm not in that market.
Sure.
But I just believe that the real estate is your best investment. The single family brick home. I bought homes in the blue collar areas of Nashville that are now hot zip codes. Mm-hmm. And I bought houses, in Williamson County, in Bellevue. And some I keep and some I resell and some I sell to my clients, not properties that I purchase.
Yeah.
But I've got a handful of clients that have bought investment properties, and that's a very small percentage of my business. But my clientele is first and second time buyers.
Sure.
Every now and then I'll get a third generation client.
Yeah. Now you were just telling us this story. Now you have great stories, and you were just telling us a bit ago that you have your first third generation clients.
Yeah, see, if you start young, you can do that, Joshua.
Yeah. I mean, you're still fairly young, Bobby.
I started when I was 14.
Exactly. So yeah, you were saying a third generation.
Now
so
I had a client that had sold in the 1980s that lived on Harding Place, and then the daughter and son-in-law sold a house to them on Trousdale, and of course my client that was World War II generation, they've passed away. I'm still in contact with the mom and the son-in-law, and but last year their daughter called, who was the grandparents of Mr. and Miss Spalding, and we sold her a condo at Brentwood Point. So she put a Google review on the third generation, and some of my peers said Bobby Hite must be really old to get a third generation.
That's amazing. I mean, and also just the fact that you've done such a good job, in serving people that I'm sure would you say the vast majority of business is referral business?
It is. I've got some clients that I've sold 7-8 properties for, and I'm very blessed to have the clientele that I've got, and it's not about money. I've got great passion for people. I mean, when I put a house up for sale, there's a lot of folks that don't have family, and the basement is full of junk, and I'll send a guy over with a truck, and they'll declutter, and just things like that that's simple and easy, not expensive for me to do, and it just takes a little bit of stress out of the transaction. So I try to look for needs that they have that I can meet other than just getting them top dollar for the property.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So one of the things you're also, I think, a fascinating salesperson. You have been very old school, I would say. I don't even know if you still have the index cards, but I always found that fascinating. In the trunk of your car, you had index cards where you would keep notes on. I mean, so you're world class, I think, in terms of your follow up. You're staying in touch with people. It still works. Are you still using the index cards?
Well, mostly in the computer now, but I've got somebody behind me that I'm still a pen and paper guy, but thank goodness I've got a staff behind me that is computer, and we do a lot of follow up like that.
We finally got you on the smartphone too.
You did. Yeah.
So you got a team that's helping you, certainly serve people. But
my goal is to be face to face with people, and see what kind of needs they've got, what I can do to help them. And it's a very competitive market, and we've got a lot of great realtors in the area that do a really good job.
Sure.
So I'm very blessed to have the clientele that I've got, and the reputation I've got that I've worked really hard to protect and to nurture in this marketplace.
Yeah. Any advice to someone thinking about buying a home? Is now a good time to buy a home? How about that question?
Yeah. Interesting. The mortgage business that you're in, 6.5% is a great interest rate. I mean, I bought houses at 10%, 12%. You probably did too at some point.
Yeah, 8.5%. Yeah.
And so I think the 3.5 or the 3% rate, I'm not sure if that'll ever come back. But I think there's still a market out there. And what I'm seeing, that homes, a lot of houses, if they're priced right, are going under contract within 2 to 3 weeks. There's still some properties that are sitting there, and it usually gets to a price issue. And it's a very difficult job for the agent, the broker, to really know the value of a house. I'm still surprised at some of the comps that I pull.
Yeah.
And it's hard to explain.
So your experience tells you one value, like your just initial impression, but then you do the research and it's usually worth more.
Yeah, I mean, data is important, but being hands-on in 3 or 4 zip codes, I just have a feel, I have a gut when I walk into a piece of property. And a lot of my properties go under contract, even in this market, 30 days or less.
Yeah.
But it's still, I don't want to call it a guessing game, but Zillow will give you an estimate, and the comparable market analysis will give you but there's still things about condition and value and neighborhood feel that comes into value. It's more than just square footage.
Yeah. So now I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that in addition to doing real estate, you also have your insurance company.
Well, a couple of things that we did. Property management, we're very active in that. And probably 1990s, I added a property and casualty agency. I've got 2 ladies that run that. So we've got contracts from 5 major carriers. And that's worked hand in hand with the real estate market, the P&C market, home and auto and umbrella. Susie and Beth are involved in that. We've got thousands of people insured, and again, 3 or 4 zip codes. And the two markets kind of complement each other. And I've got some clients that I handle their insurance. We handle their real estate. I've got some clients I just do their real estate. And I've got some clients that just do they've got relationships.
Exactly. So how much, this may be a question you don't know, or how much longer do you think you'll be doing real estate?
Oh, for another 20 years anyway.
another 20 years.
You'll be retired before
when you think about the last home you sell, I mean, you might sell that home for $5 million. Who knows? Who knows what real estate will be at this time? Yeah. Well, cool. Well, it's good to chat with you. Sure. I love our lunches, and you've got some great stories. I do see when we go to eat in Brentwood, you're like the mayor of the area. Everybody knows you, and we've all seen your signs everywhere, and I think you're successful because you genuinely care. And I love that you said that, hey, I'm not just interested in making money. I'm interested in serving people and loving on people, and I know you take care of a lot of elderly people and people maybe in their final home, and so it just takes a lot of care and love, and that's a big part of why you've been successful. Yeah. So,
well, thank you for all that.
All right, good to have you, and we'll have to do this again.
I'm open. Thanks.